powerful places. You got a lot of power. When you have families, the Rockefeller families, the Rockefeller brothers, they managed to do pretty well, didn't they? Nelson, governor of New York, David, president of a big bank, Lawrence, president of another bank. When you have people working together, there's power there. And God says, you are your fellow Christian's brother or sister. Ooh. Does that create for you an image of the potential power that we have if we all really stay together and close? That's why he wants you to win your brother. And try to use the community if you can so that you all stay together, because I tell you, if two on earth agree something, your Father in heaven will do it. Where two meet, because wherever you two of you meet my name, I'm there. Very powerful. Now Peter goes up and says, yeah, but this brother of mine that you're talking about, that I should go and see him and try to patch things up, how often do I have to forgive this rascal? 7 times? And some translations say 70 times 7. The one I read to you says 77. It's always a little difficult to know about the mathematics of the Greeks and the Hebrews. It wasn't exactly like ours. But anyway, it's a big number, right? It's keep on forgiving. It's not get up to that number and then quit. And so we come to the parable, which is the subject of the sermon. A great king, many servants. He's calling to account. He's kind of doing the administration thing. And it turns out that there's one who has a debt of 10,000 talents. How much is a talent worth? Matthew Henry's notes computes this in the value of the British pound at the time that he was writing his commentary nearly 100 years ago. And he said that at that time, it was worth a sum which is approximately $10 million. Now, can you imagine what $10 million was worth 100 years ago? That's a fair amount of money. This is a parable, folks. It's not meant to be made to run on all fours. It means the man owed a huge, unimaginable sum of money, something that he could never possibly pay. He's a servant. I love him, but he's a servant. So, the common thing to do at that time was, well, tell him to go get a job. It's selling him. Doesn't mean slavery. There was no slavery. It means telling him to go get a job, get employed. His wife would have to work. His children would have to work. And he had a garnishing on, their wages, something that would come to him rather than build them anything. And then the man says, oh, please don't do that, can you? And the man says, okay, fine. He'll let him go and cancels the debt. $10 million. Canceled. Then the servant goes out, 100 denarii. That means 100 days' wages. 100 pennies of that type. Denarius was a penny. Oh, he gets him and throttles him. You pay me, I'm going to throw you in jail and you make you pay. Now the king hears about this, and he calls him in and he says, you wicked servant. The great king has shown great grace to this man. And that's God. And the image, of course, is clear. God shows great grace to all of us and tells us what he just told Peter, keep on forgiving your brother without limit. Make yourself like the little child. Don't be trying to build yourself up. This is God. This is a picture of God. It's God's method. It's God's character. God himself is not less gracious, less kind, less compassionate than this king. He's even more compassionate. Every time you find anything in the parables God is better, whether it's a parable about a parent, a father, and a child, whatever it may be. Now, among us, how do we act? We have a choice. We can act like the king, or we can act like Peter, saying, how many times do I have to forgive him? Or even worse, like the servant said, pay me. You owe me. What? I'm going to sue you. Now, it says here the king handed this man over to the torturers. And almost every translation that you will see says torturers. But I commend you to the RSV. In the RSV, you will not find torturers. It's the only English translation that doesn't have it. But it's the translation where the Greek New Testament translation was under the supervision of Dr. Bruce Metzger, who was my Greek professor at Princeton Seminary. And Bruce Metzger was known throughout the whole religious world as the greatest Greek scholar of his time. And he was a Bible-believing Greek scholar. He knew that God is love. And he said, torturers? No, not from that Greek word. That's wrong. It can be used that way. It is in a secular way. They did that sometimes. But the point was, you'll find it in the RSV, he handed him over to forced labor. It says he had to go to work. So don't get hung up over torturers in this wonderful chapter about great grace, about forgiveness. This is a chapter about forgiveness. And the message is the same one which is at the end of the Lord's Prayer, where Jesus taught them to pray, saying, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And then he preached a little sermon on right after. He says, because if you don't forgive, you won't get forgiven. Forgiveness is the heart of the Christian life, because love is the heart of the Christian life. We're told the new commandment Jesus gave is love one another. If you do that, you can't be unforgiving. It just doesn't compute. You're kidding yourself if you live in unforgiveness and think you're a loving Christian. You're not. You must forgive. Forced labor. But the greatest message that I have from this chapter is the last 3 words here. You must forgive him from your heart. Let's sing together, Jesus is coming to earth again.